All right, Foodie Jules here, MUKBANG Jules here, Cocktail Jules here. Today I'm here to talk about my experiences kind of moving from Texas to Seattle, and maybe some reasons why you should move to Seattle and why you shouldn't move to Seattle. Granted, take my experiences with a grain of salt. I speak as an Asian American guy who came here in his mid 20s. I'm now 30. Everyone's experience is totally different. Some people grew up here. Like if you grew up here, it's totally different. If you're a transplant like me, and even if you are a transplant, like if you came from another place in America, it's going to be much different if you came from abroad to work in the area, work in the metro. Maybe with exception to folks who are used to like North American culture. You came from Canada, basically. But here are kind of my reasons on why you should move to Seattle, why you shouldn't move to Seattle. I think reason number one, obvious reason, if you are in tech and you're looking to maximize your wealth accumulation, let's say you're looking to build an economic base and advance in your career, Seattle is a great place to be, especially if you are in tech. I think aside from California, I read somewhere, or Bay Area rather, Seattle has the highest concentration of tech workers in the country with abundant job opportunities. Now I know oftentimes you see statistics and they are dwarfed by California. I would argue that Seattle is probably a better place, marginally better place, I think, than the Bay Area. You don't have as much of a tax burden as you do in California with income tax, capital gains tax. Well, in California, they tax capital gains as income. And yeah, you can really maximize your wealth creation in the city. I think the climate is definitely more conducive for you to hustling and advancing your career. I think without a doubt, like if you work here in the fall and in the winter, the days are very short. When you get up and go to work, it's dark outside. When you go home, it's dark outside. There's not a lot of distraction or draws, honestly, given like the weather, given the state of kind of the social climate, which I'll get to later in this video, that will distract you from your work. So you can really focus here, advance, grind it out in your job. If you're really looking to hustle and level up in terms of as an engineer, or even if you're a manager, like seeking to go to your junior management role to maybe middle management, maybe senior middle management to director, like it's a really, really great place to be able to be focused on your work and kind of accumulate wealth. So great for career. I think moving here personally was the best thing for my career that I've done so far, and it's my very short time that I've been in the workforce. And I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have changed a thing. Like I definitely am glad I came here. And yeah, like kind of where I am today, I think I wouldn't have had similar opportunities in many other cities in the country, aside from maybe the Bay Area, and you could probably argue to maybe New York City, maybe Austin. But yeah, I didn't know that at the time. Austin, when I had moved here, was still an up and coming. I regard it as an up and coming city. It wasn't. It didn't have the level, I think, of tech maturity that it has now in 2023. But yeah, I think yeah, Seattle is a great place if you're looking to maximize your wealth, or build wealth and advance in your career in tech. Now, those are, I think, those are, I think, the main reasons to come here is, job, wealth creation. I think the other big draw here, of course, is the nature, accessibility to great hiking if you love the outdoors, and even if you don't love the outdoors. Like for me, I was not a hiking guy when I came here. I am more of a hiking guy. I wouldn't say it's my entire personality, like that often becomes the case when folks move here. I don't know. It's a stereotype, right? Like everyone gets into hiking, bouldering, you work in tech, etc., etc. But the nature is a huge draw here. I think Seattle is probably the most beautiful city in the United States, hands down. I think the natural beauty of the place cannot be compared to many other places in the country. I mean, I'm comparing my hometown of Houston to Seattle. Houston is like a gigantic strip mall. Seattle is mountains and forests and ocean, um, absolute beauty and lots of greenery. Like if you love the outdoors, if you love hiking, and even if you don't, you'll grow to like it. It's really relaxing and a way to decompress from stresses of work if you work in a stressful career, but also just to kind of get in touch with nature, maybe introspect, reflect on things in life. It's a great escape. And that's why that's another thing I love about living here is, the nature and its accessibility. Um, those are kind of the big things for me on why you should move here. Now let's kind of get to the list of things of why you shouldn't move here. One, if you are a social person and you love people, you love getting to know people, like expanding your social circle, like growing your social circle. And I not mean, not even, I don't even mean it like in a superficial way where you're just trying to collect friends, but really genuinely connecting with people. You'll find that very difficult when you move here. I think one of the big cultural changes that I found when moving to the Northwest is that the definition of the definition of politeness is much different than in Texas. And let me explain that. I think when you're in Texas, there's I think some latent expectation for you to have some sort of regard and curiosity into other people's lives, even if they're just strangers. And you see this if I'm standing in line in HEB, which is a store, like a really great grocery store down in Texas, in the Houston, San Antonio, Austin area. I think now they have in Dallas. You're kind of expected, or not really expected, but more often than not, you'll shoot the breeze with people in line. Maybe not every time you're in the grocery store, but it wouldn't be an uncommon thing to see two strangers talking about random stuff in line in kind of a pleasant sort of way. If you do that here, people will think you're kind of weird. They'll think you're soliciting for money, you're looking for drugs or something like that, or you're kind of out of your mind. Don't do that here. I think the polite thing to do when you come to the Northwest is keep to yourself, mind your own business, and leave other people alone. That is kind of the level of politeness, and I think the social contract that a lot of people who have lived here for a long time or are from here expect of one another. And so if you're not into that kind of culture, like you're used to kind of the warmth of the South, if you're from the Midwest, you'll probably have a very, very difficult adjustment moving to the area. That being said, like if you're an introvert and you absolutely hate engagement with other people, or it stresses you out, maybe you are an anxious person, this is honestly a great place to be. Like people will leave you alone, leave you to your business. They won't try to harass you. I think one of the anecdotes from one of my girlfriends from a long time ago, like she told me, like it's like less people will come up to her and bother her, like if she's just reading in a coffee shop or a bar, and try to get her number, versus when she was in like Austin, for example. Like you can really chill and be an introvert and have your own space. It's great for that. But it's probably absolute hell if you're an extrovert, a people person, or someone who's looking to genuinely like expand their social circle and develop new connections. I think it's very true. The Seattle freeze does exist here. People are slow to warm up to you. It takes a long time to develop friendships, and even at time like years, I would say. And the progress can be glacial. To be honest, sometimes a lot of people aren't that willing to let you in, or if they do let you in, right, you're expected to only be a friend in certain contexts, and it's really hard to kind of bridge yourself out of those contexts to a more like general friendship, I guess, of what you would have in college, right? Just hanging out, doing whatever, versus hanging out, doing X specific thing. Like for me, I have a lot of friends, and I'm guilty of this too. I think kind of the culture has rubbed off on me. I have certain friends that I only do certain things with, but I do not do any other thing um, of that sort with them. For example, I go social dancing at one location. That is my context of meeting my friends, is solely confined to that specific place, doing that specific dance. That's just one example. So yeah, I wouldn't move here if you're trying to, if you're a people person trying to grow your friend group. It's not a really easy place to make friends. The second thing is, food. Now this is a controversial opinion. People from the city like to rave about the food scene, how diverse it is, how multicultural it is. I, yeah, I coming from Houston, like I think the diversity of food options is a little second tier. It's not as bad as other cities in the United States, but compared to like California, for instance, if you grew up in the Bay Area, especially if you live in like the South Bay right now, with an abundance of Chinese, Korean, Filipino, Vietnamese options, you're gonna be a little bit sad when you come here. One, I think there's not a lot of economical options compared to other cities like Houston, where I'm from. It's easy to find economical ethnic food options. Here, it's often upmarket, especially if you're in the city proper. If you want to go and get cheap eats, you're gonna have to drive far out. I think that's the same thing. You could say that honestly about Houston too, in some sense, but there's a lot more economical options if you go outside the city, and it's a little more like not as yeah, I think not as really you have to go out of your way to find things. Food options are just okay. If you love coffee, if you love craft beer, and I'll preface craft beer if you like, IPAs, coffee, IPAs, French pastries, you'll be very happy here. I think some of the French pastries here are top tier, honestly, some of the best in the country. But if you're looking for like, economical Chinese food options, Vietnamese food options, you might be a little disappointed. Korean food is half decent if you go north and south, Federal Way, Edmonds area, like Shoreline, maybe less so Shoreline, but if you go like South Snohomish County or South King County for Korean food, you'll have some good options. The Chinese food is much improved from when I was a kid visiting extended family up here in the early 2000s. A lot more like mainland Chinese options like hot pot, soup dumplings, things of that sort. You'll be semi pleased. But if you're looking for a food city to live in, don't come to Seattle. If you want food, go to the Bay Area. I would not say San Francisco proper, but like South Bay, L.A., New York, Houston. Those are food cities. I would not say Seattle's a food city. That being said, it's a lot better than a lot of other cities in the United States. I'm honestly comparing it to Houston though, and I honestly miss the food diversity in Houston, where you can easily get a lot of Vietnamese, South Asian food. Indian food's really great in Houston. You can get really great Mexican food. You can get decent Chinese food. I would argue the Chinese food might be slightly better here, but it's a lot more expensive than back in Houston. But yeah, so don't move here if you're looking for a food city, if you're looking to expand your friend group. Third thing is, don't move here if you're looking to find a partner. And I speak this solely from the perspective as an Asian American guy. I think your perspective will be really changed. One, I think if you're female and you're heterosexual and you're looking for a partner, there's an abundance of men in the metro. If you look at statistics, I think there's something like around 20,000 more, 20,000, I don't know the relative split between men and women in the 25 to 34 age category, but there's a large surplus of men relative to women in the mid-20s to early 30s range. If you're looking for a partner and you're a woman, I think there's a lot of options here. I think, but there's they're all like tech bros, like a lot of the guys here working here, and so you'll have to work with that. I think the stereotype is sometimes true, not always true. Like you know, working on a computer all day does kind of make you a little bit dull socially, I have to say. And so some of the stereotypes about tech guys can be true, just spoken from experience. But yeah, if you're a girl, I think just by the number of men, there's a lot of available options. That being said, I've heard anecdotally it's not really that easy to find a partner, even if you're a woman here in Seattle. And so, yeah, dating kind of sucks. I think all around, it's just terrible here. If you're a dude, especially, you're going to if you're a dude here and like let's say by Western beauty standards, you're not the most attractive guy. You're average. You're below average. And like to be perfectly honest, I don't consider myself like a very attractive guy. Maybe I am average at best. Um, you're gonna have a really hard time, especially if you're solely focusing on online dating, app dating. It's not going to go super well for you. I think one of the things you can do to maximize your chances is when you if you don't have I wouldn't advocate this, but if you are Christian, I wouldn't recommend you coming here, spoken from experience, and looking for a partner. I think Seattle, the stereotype is very true. And I think it's especially more pronounced among people in their early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s. Probably the most, I would say 8 out of 10 people. I could be completely off base, but I feel like anecdotally, 8 out of 10 people you'll encounter in daily life don't have any religious beliefs if they're early 20s to like mid 30s. And if that's an important vector for you in finding a partner, and you're looking for kind of a serious relationship in that regard, like I am, you're probably going to have a lot of struggle too. I think if you're looking for if you are conservative politically, also kind of a scarlet letter in a way. I think not as bad as, well, I would argue it's probably as bad as the Bay Area, right? If saying you're a Republican in the Bay Area, it's almost like if you have a third eye on your forehead, basically. If you have conservative political beliefs, you're gonna be having a rough go of it. That's like being, I think, left wing in like the deep South. You're just gonna have a rough go of it. You're not gonna if you're looking for folks who have the similar mindset or viewpoint, you're not gonna find it here. Like, granted, I am a pretty moderate guy, but I think relative to my peers, I would probably appear more right wing than most, just given the cultural consensus that is in the Northwest, very atheistic. Checkmark all of the Democratic Party, left-wing progressive ideas, and that is your average, I think, Seattle voter, Seattle personality, to be honest. So if you don't fit that mold, it will be a little bit difficult to kind of fit in, I think, and find a partner, especially if you're looking for kind of those similar views. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Like, this shouldn't discourage you. I think if you're out here and looking for love, keep looking. It doesn't really hurt to look and be open, and just be open to meeting people. I think the culture is not very conducive necessarily to meeting people, but usually if you show kindness to other people, people will reciprocate back, and it doesn't hurt to be like a kind person, to be honest. Yeah, that being said, though, it's very, very hard to find a partner, especially if you're just looking online. If you do work in tech, there's probably ample opportunities to meet people, and I think that really depends on the company you work. Like my company, I don't get any free food. There's not like a very central place where people to meet and eat, because our offices are kind of designed in a way that doesn't really encourage gatherings of large groups of people in one place where you can just meet other people. You're kind of, in a way, atomized a lot, in a way. Like, you can eat in the break room of your kitchen and maybe some shared common spaces, but usually you won't see people just chilling there and eating, like, and looking to meet people. People will keep to themselves, and Yeah, it's very different experience, right? From kind of like if you come from school, especially if you're a new grad, right? It may be kind of hard for you. Like I think maybe in other places, the culture might be more conducive to socializing, but your opportunities are limited working kind of in the corporate world in tech. Tech, it's still corporate kind of field to be perfectly honest. Like that being said, there are opportunities at times where they do hold cultural events, cultural celebrations. Like sometimes there'll be random board game nights, or like they'll set up a basketball court um, in my not in my office, but in the Seattle office. And yeah, that's a great way to meet people. Like, but those opportunities are not always consistent. I wouldn't recommend relying on work to make friends too. And sometimes that also invites its own difficulties as well, just kind of conflicts of interest, especially with coworkers. For me, I like to separate business from pleasure. I like to be nice to the people I work with people who report to me, but separate business from pleasure. You'll probably be better off for it. But yeah, I think that's the third thing, or not the third thing. That's another thing, right? Don't. I wouldn't move here if you're trying to look for love. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of my list of things. It's honestly, a pretty generic list. I think a lot of the experiences that I've had are probably shared by a lot of other guys here. I think if you're still looking for love, don't give up. I want to say it gets better, but I can't really speak from experience. But I think it will get better, to be honest, in terms of finding a partner, things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm freaking ranting right now. This Negroni, not Negroni. I'm drinking Bolivardia. I'm not even thinking right now. This Bolivardia is going to my head. That's all I really have to say. This is kind of the end of my pro con list of living here. And yeah, that's Mukbang Jules signing out. Have a good evening, y'all, and cheers.